Hey, what's up guys, it's Renaldo here. So this video is going to focus on how once again News 24 wants to villainize Afrikaners and want to consistently talk negatively and racially about Afrikaners in South Africa. Because according to News 24, if you look at their reporting, anything an Afrikaner does in this country is racist. If an Afrikaner celebrates their culture or their heritage, then that is racist, or it's Apartheid Nostalgia. Because for some reason, every single culture in South Africa can celebrate their heritage, their language, and their culture, except Afrikaners. Now, what am I talking about? Well, News 24 came out with this essay, one of the longest articles that I've ever seen, in which they are talking about this event that takes place for the last 35 years in South Africa. And it's called Bokkieweek. Now, this is an event that was established in 1991 specifically for Afrikaners to protect the culture, to celebrate the culture, and the event is rugby, netball, and hockey for under 13s to under 19s. Now, because it is an Afrikaner only event, of course, all of the participants will be white South Africans, because believe it or not, being an Afrikaner means that 99.9% of the time you're going to be a white individual. Now, because it was a white only event, that is now what the issue is for News 24 and apparently for the Premier of Gauteng and also the Minister of Sport. Ironically though, the Minister of Sport has an opinion when he is the Minister of Sport of a country that has got the most race-based laws and most racial quotas in sport in the entire world. The question that we have to ask the Premier, the Minister, and News 24 is why after 35 years now is there a problem with an Afrikaner-only cultural event? Why is it a problem now? And by the way, this event is not tied to any union or sporting organization. This is just a bunch of Afrikaners that's doing something of their own. And over the last few years, it has actually become the only place where a lot of young white South Africans can display their talent because of the racial quotas that have been implemented in sports, specifically sports for the younger generation. Now, before I continue with that, I want to bring your attention to the following. Apartheid officially ended in 1990, right? Now, let's argue that any child born before 1990 had some privilege. I know it's idiotic to even think and say that, but let's just argue that that's the case. So that means that somebody that was born in 1990 will turn 36 this year, meaning that anybody younger than 35, 36 should technically not be discriminated against because they weren't even born when apartheid existed. So if you look at the racial quotas in South Africa in 2026, it is worse now than it's ever been. Where in actual fact, don't you think that things should get lower the further away you get from apartheid? And also, why are you discriminating against children? Why are you preventing talented young South Africans from not being able to represent their province or the national side at the specific age group level because of the color of their skin? Can you please explain to me how that is any different to the race-based laws during apartheid? Now, just to illustrate what I'm talking about, I'm going to just quickly reference the News 24 article so that you can see that this is them wanting to report on a non-story to put pressure on the organizers as well as the sponsors of the event, because this is really important. News 24 didn't write this article because they really feel offended by an Afrikaner-only event. No. They want these events to fade away. They want sponsors to withdraw from these events. This is the actual target of News 24, specifically Pieter de Tooy and Adrian Basson and the usual suspects in News 24 that has got such an anti-Afrikaner narrative that they want to spin. Now, when you look at the article, you'll see that a short piece of it is actually based on what the event is about. And then the overwhelming majority of the rest is just comments from sponsors, comments from rugby unions, cricket unions, netball unions, hockey unions. In an actual fact, they want to report on something that the organizers of this event has never claimed to exist. It's actually reached such a point of absurdity that the person who wrote this piece of trash article had to find offense with the fact that Bokkieweek uses green and gold as their colors. Because apparently only the Springboks in the entire world can have that color combination. So the article is such baseless nonsense that they had to go and find things in order to make it offensive. So I'll share it with you now, but before I do, please subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free. It won't cost you anything. And don't forget to smash the like button and to share this video far and wide, especially if you want to spread the word of how absurd this nonsense is. Let's have a look. So here's the article. It says SA Rugby, Hockey, Netball reject Apartheid era Afrikaner only tournament. Now, firstly, they didn't reject it. The actual thing in the article itself that I'm not going to read through because I really want to save you from this piece of trash article is the fact that they reached out to the different sporting codes and asked them if they are associated with Bokkieweek, and then they came back and said, no, we've got no affiliation. And then their headline is that they reject this apartheid era Afrikaner only tournament, which is just a bunch of nonsense. Now, let me illustrate how far they are willing to go with this. Look at this. This is all that they've written about this article. It goes on, it goes on, it goes on, it goes on. It doesn't stop. It just goes on. Like, this is one of the longest articles I've ever seen in my life on News 24, and it's about a non-event. It's about an event, in actual fact, that's lasted for 35 years and is going strong. Over 3,000 participants, over 4,000 supporters. And News 24 now wants to make this a racial issue, an apartheid-esque issue. The only thing I'm going to focus on is this. Bokkieweek has been held annually since 1991 and is open to Afrikaner rugby, hockey and netball players. So why do you have a problem with it now if it's existed since 1991? Then secondly, the tournament is hosted by Afrikaner Volkseie Sport, an organization set up in protest against interracial sport in South Africa. Okay, great. So there's your hook. Is this actually what this entire thing is about? It's just to get back at what the founder of it said in 1991. I mean, we can go back and look at what Naspers' focus was when that was established and how it actually reported positively on apartheid in order to keep apartheid alive in South Africa. So if you want to play this game, then we can play this game, Media 24 and News 24. Go and look at who your founders are and what they supported. But anyway, Afrikaner lobby group AfriForum, one of the sponsors of the event, defended AVS's right to host it. So like I said, it goes on and it's just a bunch of nonsense. You know, once again, News 24 has to be the story. They're not reporting on the story because this is not news. This is News 24 trying to make news by phoning the various unions, phoning the sponsors, phoning AfriForum and wanting to get a story out of this. This is what's wrong with News 24 and this is why they are losing 850,000 Rand every single day that they open their doors. I'm not over-exaggerating. Go and look at their financial results. They cost Media 24 and Naspers 850,000 Rand every single day because of this shit that they write over here. But of course, not to be outdone by News 24, Panyaza Lesofie had to jump on the bandwagon and say, school sports events exclusively for white Afrikaner children in our land. Afrikaner Volkseie Sport has circulated a letter to schools announcing rugby, netball and hockey trials for a tournament called Bokkieweek that is open only to white Afrikaner pupils. No, it's only open to Afrikaners. I don't know why you have to use the word white in there. It's a cultural event. But anyway, Minister Gayton McKenzie, this Bokkieweek is nothing but a racist endeavor that is a travesty of our democracy. You really want to go there. And I'll give my opinion on it now. But Of course, not to miss a beat, Gayton McKenzie then jumped on saying, "This is utter nonsense, which we will not allow, Premier. Apartheid nostalgia showing up once again." All right, really, do you want to play this game? Okay, let's play this game, right? So there's a cultural event called the Reeds Festival, right? When it's the young Zulu ladies that become women, where there's actual money that gets pushed by the South African government into that process, right? You got the men's initiation protest when the young boys go to the bush and they come back as men, right? Now, the last time I checked, there's not a single white person that's involved in those traditional cultural events, right? So is that racist? Is there something now suddenly wrong with those events? And why don't you say anything about those events? There are so many cultural events that is almost 100% black every single time. And you don't get white people complaining about it because we understand Zulu culture has Zulu traditions and they are more than allowed to do with their culture whatever they want. The same with the Quotas, the same with the Vendas, the same with the Sut, every cultural group in South Africa. But the one that people always have a problem with is Afrikaners. You know, and whenever an Afrikaner is proud of something in their culture, in their heritage, then it is apartheid nostalgia. And it is wanting to bring back apartheid. We can't just live our own lives, do what we want to do, because the moment we do that, and the moment we want to celebrate our language or our culture or heritage, then it's like, oh, you want to bring back apartheid, you miss apartheid. Like, it's like footsack. Enough with this nonsense. Do you know why an event like Bokkieweek has to exist? It's because when these young white children that had nothing to do with apartheid and that you as the government are discriminating against, when they go to those events, then they can't make the team. Because just if you look at Craven Week, 50% of the people have to be black. It's not, hey, you know, if you've got a talent, come play and there we go. No. It's 50% has to be black. Non-negotiable. And if they do not meet that requirement, then the team can be disqualified or the union can be fined. And that is across netball, hockey, all these sports in South Africa, especially with youth development. They have these racial quotas. Now, I'll ask you with tears in my eyes, what is more controversial? A cultural group having an event for their culture, and just like in Norway and in the Netherlands and in other parts of the world where a culture might only consist of white people, that is what is happening in South Africa with an Afrikaner cultural event. You are going to only see white people because overwhelmingly only white people can be an Afrikaner. We can argue if you want to include colored people, and I'm sure that there might even be colored people at that event. But regardless, the fact that we have to apologize for our culture and we have to apologize for the fact that the overwhelming majority of Afrikaners are white people is just absurd. The point that I'm making though is, what is more controversial? Afrikaners having a cultural event and fortunately or unfortunately or however you want to see it, 99.9 or 100% of the people involved are white. Or the government telling youngsters that, you are too white to make it to the team. You have got the best talent that we've ever seen in this position, but unfortunately we have a racial quota, so you can't play for the team. Which out of the two of those are more controversial? Discriminating against a child because of the color of their skin, or having a cultural event and the fact that the culture is overwhelmingly white, that just means that the overwhelming majority of people that participate will be white. Of course, it's the government that wants to implement these racial quotas and discriminate against children that had nothing to do with apartheid. We've also reached the point where we need to have a serious conversation about Afrikanerdom and our culture and our heritage and our language. It's time to stop being apologetic for things that you had no control over. The overwhelming majority of Afrikaners alive today weren't born during apartheid. Most Afrikaners alive today are people that were born after apartheid. And the ones that might still be alive that had a hand in apartheid or benefited from it are either in an old age home and they can't even remember their name. So this absurdity of the forever crime of apartheid and associating that with all Afrikaners and all white people needs to end. I mean, they want to portray this picture that, oh, it's only Afrikaners that did bad things in the history of South Africa. Well, no. In actual fact, the British, during the Second Anglo-Boer War, putting women and children into concentration camps and killing them and starving them to death. What about that? Oh, what about Afrikaner, where Shaka Zulu killed between 1 to 1.5 million of his own people and the Xhosa people? Women and children, women that were pregnant, were literally killed because they were pregnant because he was mourning the death of his mother. And you know what? Instead of also going, hey, Shaka Zulu nostalgia, no, instead of criticizing all of that or acknowledging that he is the biggest killer of black people in the history of South Africa, they name an airport after him. Do you understand what I'm talking about when I say there's a difference between cultural groups in this country and what is celebrated and what is not celebrated? Now, apartheid was an atrocious system. It was terrible. And anybody that had a hand in it needs to face the consequences. But also, putting this on all Afrikaners and the cultural group as if this is the only thing that we have ever contributed towards mankind is a bunch of bullshit. And that needs to stop right now. So, I see that News 24 is trying to put pressure on the businesses. And this is where you as an Afrikaner or as a supporter of the Afrikaner need to put your foot down. And it's time for businesses to decide. And it's not a question of, hey, you need to only support Afrikaners and nobody else. You need to put your foot down and say, no, we will proudly sponsor this event. And it's got nothing to do with it's only white people, it's only this. Afrikaners are a culture and we as a company support the Afrikaners, and stop being apologetic and having to explain yourself. And to those companies that don't want to be associated with Afrikaners, make it public so that we can all know who we can and cannot support. It's absolutely insane that we have reached that point where two government officials and politicians and the media will look at an event that is innocent, that's not harming anybody, minding their own business. They get splashed on the headlines and get condemned as apartheid nostalgia and all these terrible things and being racist, when in actual fact, those politicians actually do a lot more in causing racism in this country by discriminating against young people purely because of the color of their skin. That should be condemned by mainstream media, not an event that is just trying to bring people in a cultural group together. Shame on you, News 24. Shame on you, Panyaza Lesufi. Shame on you, Gayton McKenzie. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Smash the like button. Share this video far and wide. Don't forget to subscribe. It's absolutely free. If you enjoy my content, though, you can contribute financially. You can give a super thanks by hitting the $ below. Or you can become a member of this channel, which is a monthly contribution in support of me and this channel. And you can do that by clicking the join button, and it'll be greatly appreciated. And that's all I got to say. Till later, cheers, and peace out.
You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre.